Hey everybody, this is David Jenkins Jr., and you're listening to Boilers in the Stands.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back and better than ever. Boilers win in convincing fashion by the end of the final score here at Mackey Arena versus the Iowa Hawkeyes. And the magic number to clinch the Big Ten regular season championship moves down to 3 and 4 if you want that outright Big Ten championship, which I'm assuming all Boilers fans do. So I am your host, Gregory Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is Kraig Bowers from Boiler Diehards Facebook group. Make sure you follow them on Facebook. Over 10,000 Boilers fans talking football, talking basketball, and everything in between. And then underneath, as always, is our guys Joe Jackson and Aidan Kunst from their Feed the Post podcast, a Purdue basketball podcast. Just had Willie Berg on here recently. So make sure you go and follow them on Twitter and find them on Spotify and Apple and everywhere else where you can find audio podcasts. So welcome back, guys. I mean, a good bounce back for the Purdue Boilermakers. They didn't have a bad loss against Indiana, shooting 52% from the field. And I think tonight they shot 55%. We'll go over the team stats here shortly. But, I think I always try to find like the word that stands out to me. And I just think it's consistency. Today for me, it just rings so true with this team. They're a consistent team. You saw tonight, it was the number 1 versus number 2 offensive efficient teams in the country, but Purdue is just that much more efficient and consistent when it comes to how they play basketball. Obviously the 3-point ball helping them a lot tonight. So that's basically my instant reaction for the game. A nice win for Purdue. Iowa always seems to give them trouble with the press, which we'll talk about here tonight. Kraig, what's your instant reaction here for the game?
Well, like you said, in the end, it was a good win and a 14-point win. You could call convincing, but anybody that sat through the last 10 minutes or so of that game, it didn't feel like it was a convincing win at times. With that said, I thought there were a lot of bright moments in this game, which we'll get down to more in the player breakdown. But Braden Smith, when you look at his offensive stats today, was just a really, really impressive performance by a freshman. Individually broke the press multiple times. I know there's a lot of people in the chat who sat through the 2016 Iowa game, and we're having some flashbacks of that 19-point comeback right down until the last few minutes of tonight's game. But, in the end, they pulled it out, and they showed enough poise to get there. 17 turnovers is not our high on the season. We had 18 against West Virginia earlier in the season. When you think about the fact that there was just Iowa plays a lot more possessions. They speed you up. They won a bunch of possessions in the game. If you actually look at the turnover rate, this is going to be lower than several other games, I think, in the end because of that specifically.
Yeah, and you had some fans here. Blake Widmer said he got to meet you and said hi as they passed you in the tunnel here tonight, Kraig. So your celebrity is growing.
I'm a man of the people. I try to get out and walk around the concourse and talk to people that tune into the show or are part of Boiler Diehards. Always like to hear their stories about being viewers or about being part of the group.
Yeah. You and Julia Edie for the people.
Yes.
You know?
Stop.
Joe, your instant reaction.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this was a 14-point win. Like, it was a 14-point win over a middle to slightly above. We'll say middle of the pack Big Ten team. A team that has a ton of length, which is, something Purdue doesn't have. And I know that we're going to talk about the press, and that's going to be the main talking point because, it's the way that it was handled a little bit or towards the end of the second half, wasn't great, but also like, I think people are going to forget probably that Braden Smith stretch in the second half of the seven straight minutes of just, pretty much he just dissected the press and then got whatever he wanted in the half court. He hasn't quite been there scoring for the past few, 3-4 games, it felt like. And he really got going again today. And this was a game that, Iowa was very, very physical with Edie down low, didn't really let him get going. But there's still plenty of other pieces around. Like the two freshmen come out and just show like why they're so good. First has a double-double, Morton hits a couple shots. So overall, I think this kind of just shows that this team has so many options. Some games it's the bench and Mason Gillis, and some games it's Edie has 30, and some games it's the freshman. There's just so many pieces that it's going to be rare for Purdue to be completely off or at least for one night.
Yeah, that press always seems to give Purdue problems one way or another. Iowa's one of the best in the country at executing it. I mean, Matt Painter said it plenty of times because the first question will always be, and I'm sure there's some people that have said it in the chat, like more teams should do this. It should, Purdue has trouble, but not every team runs it. That's what Matt Painter always says. Well, if this isn't something that's a staple within your system, you try to bust it out for one game. Now all of a sudden you're having problems because it's just not something you're used to practicing. So Iowa practices this. That's why they're as good as they are at it. Braden Smith a few times just said, screw it, I'm going to do it myself, which, was effective, but also at times led to him getting out of gas. Aidan, what was your instant reaction to this game?
Yeah, similar, but, this was a game, guys, where the number 1 and number 2 offenses in the country faced off. Between, Iowa and Purdue. Ken Palm's number 1 and 2. I think now Purdue's 2. Iowa might be 3. And you held them to 73 points in a 14-point win, as Joe said. So even if it took a while to get there and it wasn't the most fun game to watch, I think you got to be happy with the win over Iowa, bouncing back from IU. That came out hot, started to slow down there. And this was one of those games where, it was abundantly clear that no one on the bench really belonged in this game, or at least were significantly less effective than our starters tonight. Purdue starters all +10 or better in the plus minus, and their bench was all negative. So this was one of those games that you had to ride your starters. When your starters weren't out there, it got dicey, especially with the press. Jenkins did not look super comfortable out there. And even the starters got a little lazy with the turnovers, but I think this was a game you needed your starters to step up. They did. You needed guys around Edie to step up. They did. Smith and Lawyer obviously leading the way there, and you got what you needed. Wasn't the most pretty win. Wasn't really fun to watch. I mean, it was during that 7-minute stretch because no one was stopping anybody. But it was a good win, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like at one point they were trading buckets when it was a 10-point lead for Purdue. Then they started trading buckets when it was a 20-point lead. But then Iowa was able to shrink it all the way down to 6, which we'll dive into a little deeper after we talk to our special guest for the night. Kraig got in touch with Rapheal Davis, who was kind enough to agree to join us here tonight. I believe he just left Mackey Arena here recently, and he joins us now here to talk some Boilermaker basketball. Rafe, thanks for joining the show.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you loud and clear.
Oh yeah, what's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
What's up?
That was a interesting second half. Purdue gave up 50 points, 53, I think, in the second half. So it was the second game in a row that Purdue gave up 50 and a half, which is unlike them this year, as good as they've played defensively. You know, did you think it was just because of the flow of the game and the pace of the game with the way Iowa, presses, which kind of forces the tempo to go up, or is Purdue starting to kind of fall asleep in some defensive areas as far as your assessment of that?
Well, no, I just think Iowa competed at a higher level in that second half. They had some guys get going. I mean, Chris Murray gets 18 in the second half. So, I mean, it's really not much you can do once one of those NBA level guys gets going. But then also Purdue didn't help themselves. I mean, I think they had 12 turnovers in the second half alone. So, I mean, that's the same thing that happened to Indiana. They had 11 turnovers in that first half at Indiana. And, I mean, Indiana scores in that first half, I think, 14 points off of those 11 turnovers. And then Iowa scores 14 points off of the 12 turnovers in the second half. So, a combination of an NBA-level guy getting going and then Purdue not taking care of the ball, that's just the recipe for disaster. I mean, Purdue rebounding the ball at a high level, out-rebounding Iowa by 20. That really saved them in this game. And then Purdue had, for the game, I think Purdue had 18, 20 second chance points. And that kind of evened out the turnovers. But you won't be able to have 17. I mean, you go to Indiana, you have 17 turnovers, you lose. So just got the luck of the bounce in this one.
You're muted.
Kraig,
Sorry,
you're
you're
muted.
good. Kraig.
Yeah, I got you. Hey, Rapheal, thanks for joining us tonight. We got a lot of people in the chat asking about that Iowa press, and we always seem to struggle with it a little bit. You played against that Iowa press at some point in your career. What is it about what they do that always seems to give us trouble or give really any team trouble, but especially it seems Purdue over the years?
I mean, I think when people think Iowa, they don't necessarily think defense because of the way they play offensively and how fast they play. But, I mean, for the season, I think Iowa's forcing the third most turnovers in the Big Ten. You got Rutgers, Northwestern, and then it's Iowa. So, I mean, you think about it like that, Iowa's in the same conversation as two of the best defenses in the country. So that press it's not as easy as people think. And I know I was there tonight, and I heard people saying just throw the ball to Zach, but you don't want to throw a 40-foot, 50-foot pass to your big man that doesn't really move that well left to right. And it's just, or throw a heat missile to him. And, I mean, you saw when they tried to throw it to him, they threw it out of bounds. But, I mean, Chris Murray, whether it's Chris Murray or if it's Aaron White when I played or Jared Uthoff, that's a 6'10" power forward that moves like a guard. I mean, Chris Murray, Keegan Murray, Jared Uthoff, Aaron White, Iowa keeps at that forward position, they always have a long, athletic, lanky guy that can move really well. And then, I mean, Sanford is 6'6", he's on one wing. McCaffrey is 6'7", he's on another wing. And it just is, they're long and they're athletic and they work at it. They practice their press. It's not one of those just throwing together presses that teams will do because they're losing. So it's tough. If they come and get you, and if you leave the ball, it'll be tough on you. But, I mean, it's the same thing. People have to prepare for Iowa's press, just like Iowa had to prepare to guard Zach Edey. That is their thing, and it's tough for everybody to handle.
We had a question in the chat, or a point made by Chad Austin. He said, sounds crazy, but maybe they utilize Zach to break the press somehow. I mean, they can't, quote-unquote, trap 8 feet up. Now, you see a lot of big men flash to the middle of the court on a press. Is that something that Purdue could utilize, or does Zach
you don't want
to?
I don't think you want. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a coach, but I don't think you want to turn Zach Edey into a decision maker. Because you can bring Zach Edey up, and he come catch it at the free throw line or at half court. But if everybody is getting denied, even if Zach Edey doesn't get trapped, say you stay 1-on-1 with them and Rebraca guards him straight up. Once Zach Edey puts it on the ground and tries to dribble it, Rebraca's going to take it from him, if that makes sense. So he's got to make it. Then you turn Zach Edey into a decision maker. And you've seen at Indiana, Zach had 5 turnovers. At Nebraska, Zach had 5 turnovers. And I love Zach, don't get me wrong. But I like Zach as a rebounder, as a scorer, as a guy on the block. I don't know if I want Zach to be my decision maker on the press because that's a lot for a big man that's never done it before too. You got to remember too, Zach just started playing basketball maybe for 5 years, 6 years ago or something crazy. So now you ask him to break a press and he's never done that in his life.
Yeah, no, that's.
Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I was gonna move. The big story was the press for the game. Obviously, I think that's what everybody's gonna want to talk about. But I don't want it to overshadow what Braden Smith did today. 24 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 8 of 10 shooting. We got aggressive Braden Smith. Like, as a freshman, what are you seeing from him? Obviously, he's had a great season. What are you seeing from him that just like impresses you the most, or especially today?
He just got a way about him. He just when you hear guys talk about like certain people have it, like he has it, like whatever it is. Like Braden just has like that moxie about him, that toughness, that swagger, and then like in a game like today, he just is aggressive, and that's how you have to attack the press. Like when you ask how do you attack the press, your point guard's got to go, and you saw when Braden was just going, they backed off, they couldn't handle it. I mean, Lou Jack was really good at that, just going. Just break it. But, I mean, they wore him out. I mean, he just got wore out, breaking it over and over and over again. So, I mean, you just love his poise and his confidence in himself, his ability to pass has really shocked a lot of people. But I love when Braden is aggressive. When Braden is aggressive, it changes Purdue. It makes it takes Purdue to a different level offensively. And he can shoot the ball. He can get to the rim. He's a good teammate. He defends at a high level. I'm just all around impressed. And probably the most thing I'm impressed with is his poise as a freshman. I mean, even in a game like today, he has a good stretch where he takes over the game. He gets tired, he comes out, but then he comes back in and he helps finish the game out. So he's just a big-time player, steps up in big-time moments. And same with Fletcher. I mean, that shot Fletcher hit, I mean, it was just a big-time basket. Fletcher steps up. He's been doing that all year, stepping up in big moments and really coming through. There's another game where Fletcher has double-digit points in the second half. And it's the ability to regroup at halftime and go out and really affect winning in a second has really helped Purdue for Fletcher.
Go ahead, Aidan.
Yeah, what's up, Ray? Aidan Kunst. Looking at Ethan Morton and Caleb First, right? Like those guys to me have been our two best defenders this year. And I'm just wanting to see what do you see from those guys? You were a great defender yourself. Like, what do you see from Morton and First improvement-wise that they've been able to, kind of take a leap and be the top two defenders for Purdue this season?
I'm not. I know your dad, man. Your dad's a cool dude. Your dad ever tell you stories about me?
Oh yeah, he said you were the best student he's ever had.
I doubt it, but no. I honestly, man, I would it may sound crazy, but I would say Zach is the best defender on the team. Zach is the reason why when I won Defensive Player of the Year, I was at dinner and AJ called me, and he was the first person to tell me I won Defensive Player of the Year. AJ called me. AJ said, you won my award, and then he hung up on me. So Ethan and those dudes, they get a lot of credit because of Zach, just like I used to because of AJ. Because one, if you're a guard, in the back of your head, you don't want to drive it and get your shot blocked. So you have a little bit of reluctance in your mind a little bit. And then when you know you have a big fella behind you that can move, that can guard, that can block shots as a guard, it gives you more confidence. You know what I mean? It gives you, like, because you play different. Like, I would play defense different when AJ was in the game versus when Isaac Haas was in the game. You just, in the back of your head, you know who's there with you. So, I mean, but also you got to give credit to Ethan and Caleb. They both have gotten in the weight room and really worked on their hips and their movement and their lateral quickness. And then for Ethan, more than anything, man, it's like for Ethan and myself, I mean, both of us, we're not overly athletic dudes. We're not going to wow you with our speed or our jumping ability, but he just got that want to. Ever since the game last December against North Carolina State, out there on the East Coast, You put I think they put Ethan on. I think his name was Sebron or something like that, and he locked him up in that second half. And that was when Ethan wasn't playing much, and that was when Ethan kind of really became a vital role guy off the bench last season. And sometimes you just figure out what's going to keep you on the floor. And I think Ethan really figured out what was going to keep him on the floor, and then he committed to it, and then really accepted his role. And once you accept your role and you work at it, and you really care about it, you're going to be good at it. That's with Purdue's philosophies and the way Payne coaches. I mean, once you care about it, you're going to be good at it. And Caleb is super athletic, and Caleb has got that Cody Zeller-like speed. And Caleb would be a guy that can guard 1 through 5 by the time he leaves Purdue. But having Zach behind him, I mean, it goes without being said. He's probably Zach. I would say Zach is one of the better defenders in the country.
Yeah. And I think fans a lot of times forget how good AJ Hammonds was. Like I remember listening to Painter talk about him being the most like skilled player that he'd ever coached still in an interview a year or two ago or something. Like just insane.
That was with me. Yeah, that was with me. Yeah, Payne was AJ was a guy. I mean, AJ probably was the most talented dude I ever played with. I mean, everything he did on a basketball floor was natural talent. Like I love AJ, that's my guy, but you weren't going to see AJ in the gym by himself working on his hook shot. Like you're not going to see AJ. You're not going to see AJ before. AJ's not coming before practice. AJ's not staying after practice. He's not coming back into the. If AJ comes back into the gym, he's gonna be chilling with it. You know what I mean? He's gonna be doing something he wants to do. But he just had that God-given ability to score the ball. He blocks shots with his left hand. AJ, I mean, people only got to see 20% of AJ's talent. That dude, especially once he lost a little bit of weight after he left Purdue and he started shooting, AJ could have been a 35% three-point shooter at Purdue. If he would have got in better shape a little bit, he could have really probably been the best Purdue player ever, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah. Hey, I got to put you on the spot here for a bigger, Big Ten question. My son's been blowing me up all night. He's a Wisconsin fan, lives in Wisconsin, about Connor Essegian. If you had to pick your 5 for Big Ten freshman team at the end right now, who would be your 5 guys on that all Big Ten freshman team?
Yeah, he's going to be mad at me, but, I mean, I love Connor Essegian. The Fort Wayne dude. I mean, I watched him grow up. Got to see him work out a lot at the Powell Center in Fort Wayne with his AAU program. He never loyal dude. Connor never left his AAU program. He played for a smaller AAU program out of Fort Wayne. He didn't go join the SHU program. He didn't leave his guys until his guys got connected with Indiana Elite, and then Connor went to go play with Indiana Elite. And even still then, he still played with both. He played with his guys. So Connor's a loyal dude. He's a tough-nosed dude. But I would go the 2 Purdue freshmen. You got to put those 2 on there. You got to go Bryce Sensabaugh. I know Ohio State is struggling, but Bryce Sensabaugh is probably the most skilled freshman of the bunch. And what he's done offensively, impressive. He's the one, though. It's up in the air a little bit. I would say it's up in the air for Sensabaugh. He's not playing that well tonight. So if he doesn't finish the season out strong, I could see Essegian jumping in where he is a little bit. You know what I mean? I could see that kind of being a spot Essegian could fit in. I know Essegian had 18 last night and beat Penn State. So I think that's the one that he could grab. But then the other 2 spots, Jet Howard. Jet Howard has been phenomenal. He dealt with a little injury, but he'll get on there. He'll be a top 10 draft pick, lottery pick. And then I would go Hushafino. Hushafino in Big Ten play has been better, and he's won them games. I mean, he helped beat Purdue down the stretch. Hushafino was big time. 12 of his 16 came in the second half. And then now you got Indiana, they're winning. If Indiana continues to win and they get through this stretch, and Indiana gets top 4, top 3 in the Big Ten, to the victors go to spoilers, and you couldn't leave Hushafino off of that team if Indiana finishes that high. And the reason being about Essegian and Sensabaugh, both of those teams right now at the bottom of the Big Ten, and I think kind of it'll come down to individually who finishes out better, or if it's the same player to player, I think it goes by team success, and I think Essegian can bump.
Former
Long-winded
Big
answer,
Ten.
my bad.
Oh, you're good. Former Purdue men's basketball guard Rapheal Davis joins the show here. He's currently a Big Ten Network Analyst, doing a great job over the last few years. For those of you that are just tuning in on the audio side, obviously a man that needs no introduction, but just wanted to make sure we had that properly for the people that aren't watching with the video. And Rafe, you know, when you talk about the Big Ten this year, it's a slugfest, as it always is, a rock fight. But it's not very top heavy. You know, you got Purdue and everybody else. You know, when you look at the landscape of the Big Ten, you know, I think preseason a lot thought it was going to be a down year. Now everybody's kind of beating each other down into these pretty tough conference records. I think overall, I think my question would be kind of more big picture towards March. You know, we haven't had Big Ten hasn't had the kind of success the conference wants in March Madness. Do you think that there is an element of the way the style of the game is played in the Big Ten that has an effect on the Big Ten when they get into March Madness? Or do you think that it's just kind of happenstance and it's a one-game tournament, you know, one and done kind of tournament, and that's just how it falls?
Nah, it just is what it is. Because, I mean, the Big Ten has been the Big Ten since Walter Jordan played at Purdue. It's been tough. It's been a grinded out league. It's been physical. It's been hard nosed. Every game is always going to be a battle. So, I mean, in the tournament, it's all about matchups and players. Matchups and pros. That's what I like to say about the tournament. That's what March is. Matchups, pros, and guards. If you have tough guards, if you have high-level guards, athletic wings, it helps you in March. But I would say this year is a good year in the Big Ten, definitely, because the teams are good from top to bottom. So you figure it out during the year. Like a team like Indiana, you lose 5, and you really realize how hard it is to win. You realize how playing against Northwestern is not an easy win. Every win is valuable, and the Big Ten teaches you that. So it teaches you have to play hard every time. That's what this year is teaching the guys, every team. You have to play hard every single game. There's no nights off. So I will hope that this year the Big Ten has better success in the tournament. I think this year reminds me a lot of that 2014, 2015 season where Wisconsin was the clear favorite in the Big Ten, kind of like a Purdue is right now with Frank Kaminsky, Zach Edey type of player of the year status. And then you had a Maryland team who was was second best team, and that's kind of reminds me of what an Indiana Rutgers is right now. And then everybody else from I think 3 through 7, I think everybody had 12-6 record, something like that. And then you had Michigan State, who finished in the Big Ten 12-6. They ended up in the Final Four. And I think this is the type of year where you have teams like Purdue could get there, Indiana could get there. They've had some lumps, but they figured some things out. I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois made a run. I mean, Iowa, that's the best offense in the country. So, I mean, Purdue just put a lid on them in that first half. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think this year you got more pros in the Big Ten. I think it comes down to pros sometimes. That Wisconsin team, that when I played, that Wisconsin team that made it to a Final Four, they had 4 NBA players on that team. That Michigan State team that made it that same year, they had 4 NBA players on that team. And I mean legit NBA guys. So sometimes that's what it boils down to.
Kraig, if you want to ask what Jeremy's question is, Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, so Jeremy Hunter in the chat was just asking about Zach's moment in the post-game conference. I know there was a little back and forth between you and a radio guy that will not be named. But what were your thoughts on Zach kind of stealing the mic and sticking up for Braden a little bit there and putting the onus on the whole team and not just Braden?
Man. No. I've heard Paint say that a million times. That's just something a coach would say. Zach is just taking on the mindset of his coach in that moment. And that's something coach would say. It doesn't come down to one play. One play didn't beat us. That if it's a buzzer beater, it wasn't that shot. There's multiple plays in the game. And in that game, Zach had 5 turnovers, I believe. So he just took up for his. You're not going to let your guy go out sad. And that's the same thing. maybe a guy who doesn't grab a mic or doesn't take the mic, but I mean, it only looked as if he took the mic because he's so big and Braden is so small. But that's exactly what you say for your teammate, especially as a leader, as a captain of a team. You stick up for your freshman on the road against your rival. And I mean, maybe some guys have never been in that position to stick up for a guy or been there for a teammate, but that's what you do. It's one band, one sound. And when you're at Indiana and you're in that little media room, I'm never going to let someone paint a picture or paint a narrative that it was John Knockie's fault, the reason we lost on the last possession. That's just not what you do. So I loved how Zach handled that. I love how Braden handled it. Braden answered the question himself, but then I love how Zach really stepped in and kind of said that, because that's good to know. That's good basketball information. That's good information for a kid who may have heard that interview. Maybe and I'm drastic sometimes, but maybe there's a 13-year-old kid that hears that, and maybe that 13-year-old kid missed a free throw at the end of the day, is having the worst week of his life, and he hears Zach Edey, and it gives him some reassurance. So that's just, you can never doubt a player where he's sharing good basketball information. It's just, the more basketball game you can give back into the basketball community, you got to give it back. So I'm not sure what my guy was talking about, but that was silly to me.
So you always gotta have somebody.
I'm not sure. I'm not. I've been on the court, man. I've been out there. I'm not. Guys got trash talk and things like that. That's not how that works. Guys are talking about your mother. Like, they talking about your mother out there. They're not talking about like, if a dude is listening to your press game conference and listen to that, like, if you listening to my press game conference and you gonna quote what my teammate said, I mean, come on, you corny. And that's we would have made fun of you. We used to make fun of guys that didn't know how to talk trash, and that were trying to dig too deep. But then also, in the same vein, in the same game, you had Indiana. You had in that first half, I don't know if you guys remember, I forget who it was, but they got into a little scruffle with Mason Gillis, and then TJD came up and just chest bumped him. So that's like the Purdue guys making fun of the TJD for coming to help his guy. You know what I mean? One guy is taking the mic, and one guy is literally trying to fight a guy for his teammate. So you can accept it on the floor, but you can't accept it off the floor. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the man who will not be named has got to stir it up on Twitter. He's notorious for that, so we'll let him have his fun. But you talk about giving back to the community, and with all the stuff you've done, in the Purdue community and media world, you're also giving back yourself. Why don't you tell some of the listeners some of the things that you do, throughout the year and in the off season to help give back in your way?
Nah, man. For me, it's simple. I saw basketball in my neighborhood going. I'll just be straight. Youth basketball has turned into a middle-class sport. Whether it's AAU, training fees, even gym space for youth teams to practice. A gym told me yesterday it would be $75 an hour for my youth team to practice, and I had to go a 2-hour minimum. So if you're a team and you're an inner-city basketball team and you want to practice 2 times a week, you're coming out $600 just on practice a week, which is just it's just outrageous. And in my neighborhood, they closed both YMCAs. They took out the fellowship league, the upper bound league, all of the church gyms we used to play at. They shut them down. And the next, the crime rate is raising. And now my high school team, the girls team, they only have a varsity team where they took everybody that tried out. They didn't have enough girls to form a freshman team or have enough girls to form a JV team. And that starts at a youth age. If you don't get the girls interested at a young age, they're not going to hit 14 and decide to play basketball. And also my high school team, we haven't had a Division I basketball player, even D2 guy, D3 guy since I played. So, I mean, it's just, and it was at a time where we were having guys each year. So my thing was just how could I fix that? And I reached out to some of the programs in the town, and the bigger program, they just told me flat out the kids on that side of town, they're not good enough anymore. And for me, it was I didn't like how that sounded. Honestly, I just didn't like that. I didn't like that. I didn't like for myself to be 6'3" with a mustache in the 8th grade and the opportunities I was able to get. So just because I was tall and bigger than guys and what have you, and some of the athletes that were better than me athletically that grew later in life, I talked to one of my guys, he's doing 100 years in prison. And I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I'm saying if he would have had someone like I had growing up, maybe he wouldn't be in the situation he's in. So for me, it was how could we encompass everything in one? How could we show kids how to take a path like Drew Anthrop and end up as a video coordinator for the Lakers and win the NBA championship? So my wife and I, we started a nonprofit foundation, and we in the inner cities, whether if it's Fort Wayne, West Lafayette, or if it's Indianapolis. In Fort Wayne, we do a lot, obviously, because that's my home neighborhood. We do 15 camps, summer leagues a year, league, summer league, fall league, spring leagues a year, where we raise enough. This year, we raised enough money for 800 boys and girls to be able to play for free, come to camps and play on AAU teams. We had a tribal football team. We did a baseball camp. We sponsored 3 school cheerleading teams, which is crazy to me when you think about a school system not being able to get their elementary schools pom-poms and uniforms. So being able to be a resource to people and things of that sort. But then also every Monday we do a free skill session up in Fort Wayne with Lisa Clemens. She played at Purdue. She was a starter at Purdue, a captain at Purdue. We go and do that every Monday. It's free. So if you want to get better, you can come and you can learn from 2 people that both played at Purdue, play high level. I mean, it's just we do a lot, man. We do a lot with single mothers. We donate every other week. We find single mothers and we split up $500 to kind of divvy it up to kind of social support, because for those kids, we have things, like I said, we have training for those kids that are going to be really good at basketball, that love it. I have a boy right now who's in 8th grade. His name is Trail. I think Trail can end up going to any college he wants to if he sticks with it. So we have players like that. But then we also have kids that they're not going to make their middle school team. They just won't. Like, they're just not athletic. It's just not going to happen for them. They're 5'5" and they're not going to grow. And it sounds harsh, but some guys, they just don't have it and athletically, and it's going to catch up to you. So we teach those kids how they can stay in basketball because once you love it, you love it. And it's all about staying in love with it. And once you don't make a team, you can't just fall out of love with it. I was talking to Mike DeCourcy from Fox Sports and Big Ten Network, and Mike told me he knew he wanted to be a sports writer in 4th grade because he had a mentor that told him he could do it. And now Mike DeCourcy is the biggest basketball writer in college basketball. So we have those kids where we show them, you stay out of trouble, you basketball, you love basketball, you could be a video coordinator for the Lakers. You could be a basketball analyst, because now they see me. And then once you see something, you think you can do it, but when you can touch it, you know you can do it. So now they know they can do different things within basketball. And it's just, I know I'm belaboring the point, but it's been a lot of fun. And we're even in Atlanta, we have one of our kids, Malachi, he's in Atlanta, and it's just a lot of fun to kind of be a bridge to people. And all of these guys, we took them up to Purdue this year, and they got to see the team, and now they want to come to Purdue every game. So it's been a lot of fun what we've been able to do.
Definitely not. I mean, we definitely not long. That's the important stuff here, and we appreciate you, giving back in that way. We can talk Purdue breakdown post game all we want, but this is the stuff that is truly important, and that's not blowing smoke. That's for real. So you always have a platform here to promote that, and we'll do our best on our end to promote the work you're doing out there. I saw one time somebody needed a new basketball hoop, and you put funds together from people and bought a basketball hoop for that person, and to me that shows a lot of your character. You didn't have to do that, so
like stuff like that, man. Like stuff like that, like you got boys going out there to play on a broken basketball hoop. Like, those boys could have been in the street, those boys could have been doing anything. They could have been pushing old people down for all you know what I mean? So, and then we got that rim, and what really impressed me was we got the rim and we sent it over, and all the people galvanized, and it was like a team project. We made it happen. And then once we delivered the rim, I was going to send some guys from Dick's. They were coming over to set the rim up at 5 o'clock. It took not even an hour for those boys to get up and set that rim up themselves. So they sent the picture and they said thank you. Like stuff like that. About a concept, not a mirror. It's called ethics code of utilitarianism. And if people are listening, you got to look into utilitarianism, and that's really what it's really the way I decided to live my life. And I think if you're in a position that you could give more and you could give back, you should do it, because everybody is the same. Everybody's the same. You just got different job titles. And the more and more people could think it like that, I think it can help the world move faster.
Absolutely. Rafe, really appreciate you hopping on here tonight and giving some of your thoughts and sharing some of your wisdom here on the back end as far as how to give back. I know everybody in the chat is putting out some love to you, and we appreciate you joining us. Take it on your day off. I know you and all the guys over the Big Ten Network are working hard. Boxing matches every night, rock fights to cover every night, and we appreciate you guys do great coverage over there. Should be a fun rest of the season. Three quick hitter questions. Who's the National Player of the Year?
Oh man, come on, man! You gotta ask me a tougher one than that. I'm gonna let you get a redo.
And who's the National Coach of the?
I love how Indiana fans and TJD is into the conversation. And you look at TJD, this great run that he's on. He's on a great run. He is. He's on a fantastic run. But his numbers over these last, I think it was 8 games.
I think we might have lost him.
I think he's driving home. You still there, Rafe?
You lost percent of your scoring. You lost 4 starters. You lost 2 NBA guys. You lost 2 point guards to the transfer portal. I mean, you bring in every single guy has a different role on the team. Zach is playing 30 minutes. Braden was the what? Braden Smith was the 33rd ranked point guard in the country. And now he's probably top 30 point guard in the country in college basketball, top 20. So I mean, it's been phenomenal to get guys like Mason Gillis to buy into a role off the bench. I mean, it's what Payne has done has been impressive to see, and he's been robbed a couple of times of Coach of the Year, and I think this year you got to give it to him.
Absolutely, got potentially the National Player of the Year.
My bad.
No, you're good.
My bad.
Like I said, no, you're good. I was just saying potentially. No, you're absolutely fine. Like I said, potentially National Player of the Year, National Coach of the Year, and we're hoping when this season's over, they're the Team of the Year. So we'll just have to wait and see. But Rapheal Davis, thank you again for joining the show here tonight and giving us, everything you got here on your day off.
Oh, no, I appreciate you guys. Anytime.
All right. That is Rapheal Davis. Drive safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Rapheal.
Yep.
Thanks, Ray.
All right. That is Rapheal Davis killing it here on the post-game show. Doing it up for us, and we appreciate all his time and giving us, his thoughts here on this big win. That's right, Dead Hoosier. Everyone hit that like button. If you're watching from the YouTube channel, really helps us out if you like and subscribe. I think we got up to about 88, 90 people here in the live chat here late on a Thursday night watching what we're doing here for these post-game shows. And if you like that interview with Rapheal Davis, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It'll just only help the algorithm get sent through to people that haven't found us yet, because we're going to have a lot of fun as this season ends. And before we move on to our next segment and talk a little more about the team stats and some of the individual guys, I just want to give another shout out to our guys over at Shire Insurance. And so I just want to make sure I get all my ducks in a row here. And we've got a few new sponsors here, and we really appreciate everybody kind of jumping on board with us here this season. So as life changes, your insurance needs change. Shire Insurance Services in Crown Point, representing auto owners insurance, has been helping clients with their changing insurance needs for over 25 years. As an independent agency, we love working with auto owners to provide excellent service to our clients. Buying your first home? Start with Shire. Expanding your business? Start with Shire. Your teenage driver passed the driving test and you're worried about the increased cost in auto insurance? Start with Shire. The first baby is on the way and you want to reassess your life insurance? Start with Shire. Whatever your insurance concern or need, we are ready to help make those things easier for you. Call 663-7274 or search online to start with Shire. Visit www.shireinsurance.com for all your insurance needs. So we appreciate everybody, getting through all that. So we're going to move on here to our team stats of the day. Something we do to kind of get a general idea of how these games unfolded. So field goal percentage, 45% on 31 of 69 shooting for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Purdue, red hot once again, 55% shooting, 33 of 60 from the field. 3-point percentage, Iowa Hawkeyes shoot 28% on 5 of 18 shooting beyond the arc. The Purdue Boilermakers go 10 of 27 from 3, shooting 37% from 3-point range. Free throws, 86% from the free throw line, only 7 free throw attempts, 6 of 7 made for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Not much else for Purdue. 11 of 12 from the line at 92%. Only 8 turnovers for Iowa, and a shocking 17 turnovers for the Purdue Boilermakers. Not too very shocking if you watch the game, but just shocking as far as the way this team has played all season. A lot of turnovers. They had 16 against IU and now 17 against Purdue. Against Iowa, I should say. Points off of those turnovers, 14 for Iowa. Only 5 points off turnovers for Purdue. Total rebounds, once again, Purdue dominates on the glass with 43 rebounds and 30 on the defensive glass, 13 on the offensive glass. And total rebounds for Iowa, 23 total rebounds, 15 on the defensive glass, only 8 on the offensive glass. Second chance points, 18 for Purdue, with 12 second chance points for the Iowa Hawkeyes. 17 bench points for Iowa, 16 for Purdue, pretty much a wash there. Points in the paint. This is a shocker here. Iowa gets more points in the paint with 42 points in the paint to Purdue's 38. Not something you see Purdue losing that category often this year. Fast break points, 12 for Iowa, 6 for Purdue. Blocks, 3 for Iowa, 6 for Purdue. Steals, 11 steals for the Iowa Hawkeyes using that press against Purdue. 3 steals for Purdue. Assists, 22 for Iowa, 21 for Purdue. And then only 1 lead change, and Purdue led for 38 minutes of this game, while the Iowa Hawkeyes only led for 1 minute and 18 seconds. Joe, when I ring off those stats of the game, what stands out to you there?
Obviously there's the turnovers. I don't really want to belabor that for at the moment. Smith's stat line, 24, 4, and 5 is good. Probably, but honestly, it's probably Edie's just pure stat line. 14 points, 7 on only 7 shots, 6 of 6 from the line. 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 5 blocks. He only had 4 assists. It should have been 7 or 8. And also, there's just a couple games where, or a couple plays where he doesn't get the assist, but he definitely should deserve it just by his gravity. And then Purdue shoots the ball well, 10 of 27 for 3, 11 for 12 from the free throw line. So not a ton of attempts, but still knocked him down. And that helps keep it at bay. And then probably first double-double, 11 points, 10 rebounds. He was great today.
How about you, Aidan? What stands out to you for those team stats of the day?
Yeah, I think for me, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, it's the plus minus, which I don't usually like to use as kind of a stat of the day, I guess, right after a game, but it's pretty striking when you look at all the bench guys being plus 15 or more in a 14-point win. And all the starters being plus 15 or more. And then you see all the bench guys there in that graphic from JG Trends on Twitter, all being a negative. I think those 4 guys specifically just didn't fit in this game. Iowa's length really bothered Gillis and Kaufman-Renn. They were getting whatever they wanted at the rim when those 2 guys were in. Jenkins struggled with the press. Newman just didn't find his rhythm. He got in there for 4 minutes in the first half. Put up an air ball immediately and then turned it over in the press. And after that, Greg, you had said he had a bit of a conversation with Painter, maybe a little more than a conversation with Matt Painter when he went to the bench. So just to me, they were not functional in this game. It was literally, not any of those guys being out there tanked, the team's overall performance in this game. And it was a bit of a bad matchup for them. But again, like, you're going to see a lot of length in the tournament. So it's a bit concerning, I think, honestly, for me, that they have laid this blueprint of, hey, we're a team with a lot of length. We can press you, slow you down, get you out of your rhythm, and then you'll turn the ball over in live ball situations just enough to keep us close. You know, obviously you look at like Purdue's offensive rebound rate, that if half of those turnovers are shots, you know, Purdue's likely to get about 40% of those offensive rebounds. So, you know, you'd much rather get a shot up than turn it over, especially a live ball turnover where Iowa can go the other way and you have such little rim protection when Edey's not in there, or when Edey's on the other side of the floor because you just turned it over coming this way. And I think that was kind of what bit Purdue tonight in that second half.
Yeah, you know, Chad Austin said in the chat, is everyone taking notes? We will be quizzing everyone here at the end of the show that's in the chat. So make sure you have your pencils up and ready to write. Kraig, you know, I know you stepped away for a second while we were ringing off the team stats. You can pretty much go into anything that stood out to you, but I was curious if you know, the one thing that surprised me as we were reading it off was points in the paint. Said that Purdue was outscored in points in the paint, 42 for Iowa, 38 for Purdue. Does that surprise you? Because it certainly surprised me.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me when you factor in the turnovers, because so many of those turnovers, whereas in some of the other games where our turnovers were high, a lot of those weren't live ball turnovers. Tonight, the vast majority of the turnovers were live ball turnovers, and they were just, you know, had wide open layups. Painter was calling for him to foul a few times, and players didn't see it or hear it, didn't respond to it. We had plenty of fouls to give and could have done it. Maybe kind of dropped the ball a little bit on that. I still had my headphones on, Greg. I was listening, so I know what you covered. I come back to the two things I always come back to with this team. If we're significantly plus in rebounding and plus in free throws, regardless of what else happens in the game, this team seems to win. We were plus 20 in rebounds. I think we were plus 5 or 6 in free throws. Not as big as a margin as we've normally seen. But we didn't, like, you know, Zach didn't get a lot of shot attempts, and that's tends to be when we're really heavy plus on the free throw line. So that's not surprising, but wide rebound margin, decent size free throw margin, we win the game. I think those two things are almost always ring true.
See, I didn't know that you got the wireless headphones. See, I got the old school with the wires, so I'm stuck here. You know,
I'm high tech, baby. I'm high tech.
Get the wireless headphones. And you know what? They're not the, you know, like Joe's got, the ones that everyone always. I can't get the ones Joe's got, the AirPods, because I will lose those in a minute. And then New York.
Can we give you shit for a second about being so scared to mispronounce Rapheal's name?
I know, I got it down. No, the worst part.
We worked on this before the show, and you still just said Rafe the whole time.
We did. We promised. We worked on it. We practiced.
My mom's texting me during the interview, and she's like, "Greg, his name is spelled wrong." And I'm looking at the handle on where the ad is, and it was spelled right. But the first Rapheal was I fixed it now. Now it's spelled correctly, but I had the A before the E for most of that interview. So I apologize. You know, no one ever accused me of not being a moron. So there's my snafu of the day. I screwed up. Not only am I, you know, last year's interview, yes, I was terrified to pronounce his name. Now this year I'm spelling his name wrong. So one day I'll actually do right by Rapheal Davis, but I guess third time's a charm. But he was great, and I know a lot of people in the chat really appreciated his insight. So, you know, some of the team stats are good, but we're going to try to maybe shorten up some of these segments here as we move along, since we had a little bit of an interview there with Rapheal Davis. But I do want to talk about our guys over at ISC Purdue, because they were doing a lot of good work during the show, and they provide us with some of these great pictures once we go over some of these individual players. If you're not following Indiana sports coverage, specifically if you're a Purdue fan, at ISC_Purdue on Twitter, these are some of the images from the game here today that we'll be sharing throughout this segment while we're talking about some of the individual performances by this team. And they just do a great job, and we're kind of co-oping with them, and they're going to, give us some good content here for the show. So you give you guys some good visuals, and we're going to continue to shout them out. So now we're moving on to some of the individual plays. Man, these are some great shots. I take good shots with my phone, but nothing as good as this kind of stuff.
These are good.
Yeah, really good. So shout out to ISC Purdue. Thank you again for the pictures. But yeah, let's move on to the individual performances. We don't have to go through every player tonight. Got Super Bowl Sunday. That'll be fun. I'm going to stay home for that. I think we're all going to be home for that one. So we'll be going live immediately during that game, and maybe can do like a more, intense breakdown of each player. Cause I know we like to talk about really every guy. I mean, Fran McCaffrey even said it after the game, like every player on this team is good. And we really could go over every single performance tonight because they're worth the time. But we'll just kind of stick to some of the ones that stand out. And obviously I think we have to start with Braden Smith. We've talked about him a few times, and Rapheal Davis did as well, but 24 points on 8 of 10 shooting, 4 of 5 from 3, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 turnovers in 34 minutes of play. Just a sensational effort from Braden Smith. I asked him after the game, just trying to see see if he'd give any nugget on, his having to tell himself to shoot more, because I think in the IU game, it felt like he pulled back a few times when guys were going under the screen. And, I think he kind of pushed back a little bit. It was like, not necessarily, I want to get guys the ball, but, I'm just reading the defense and I'm going to take the shot out, when I feel good about it. But then Matt Painter came to the podium, and I do think, I think Braden was just being modest, but I think, when Matt Painter was asked kind of a similar question, he said, no, I tell Braden he needs to shoot, especially when they go under those screens and they're fighting through screens and he's got the shot, he needs to take it. So, I do think there was a conversation that was had after the IU game, because I think there was a few times him and Fletcher Loyer, for that matter, passed up some shots they could have taken. But I do think while Fletcher has proven time and again here this season in the clutch moments that he's willing to take that shot, Braden at times, even though we all know he's fully capable of a night like this, any night, really, I think he needs to continue to shoot those just to kind of build that confidence up to take him in the clutch moments. And today you could see right out the gate an emphasis on putting it up from beyond the arc when the guys were going under the screen. And then just his patience, the way he'd break down the press and come around a screen and go to the rim, and the way he plays off of Zach Edey so well, and he shows this patience. He doesn't rush to the hoop and watches the way he's manipulating the defenders around Edey, and they're so paranoid that he's gonna throw the oop or a little backdoor pass or whatever. And now, he's got a wide open layup like 3 or 4 times. And it wasn't like this was on a fast break. This was in half court, but it's just the way he plays off of Zach Edey and the rest of his teammates that he's able to find those kind of easy buckets. Aidan, you've been very close to Braden Smith. So you've seen a lot of his games since high school. What did you think of his performance tonight, or some of the points that I just made?
Yeah, I mean, very close is probably an overstatement, but I have seen him play a ton. And thought tonight was him being aggressive, like you said, him punishing teams for jamming and going under, and just kind of saying F it in the break or in the press, and just taking it all the way. Iowa didn't have, they have a ton more length than him, but they're putting forwards and guys out there who aren't nearly as quick. And we saw that at times where he was able to turn the corner on double teams and just get downhill. He is, I would say 9 times out of 10, he's the quickest guy on the floor in a given game that Purdue plays, despite obviously his size, which can get him some trouble. We saw during that crazy 7-minute stretch. It seemed like Iowa just lost him a little bit. And then once he saw a couple threes go in and they keep losing him, and that they're all wide open threes. They go under on one of the first screens of the game. He pulls the trigger. Now he's seen one go in. Now he's getting in a rhythm. Braden's very much a player who plays off his own rhythm. If he's struggling, if he's not, seeing things, he's going to get frustrated. He might kind of check out mentally a little bit. I think we've seen that at times this season. What happened tonight was banging 2 threes early on Iowa going under screens, and then the 2 highlight level assists which he said in the past that he feeds off more than he does scoring. When you look at the first one where he contorts his body in the air, kicks it out to Lawyer for 3, and then on one of the following possessions, throws that no-look dime to first, who gets an and one. I think Braden just early on in this game got in a rhythm, and it just continued throughout the game, and we saw how valuable he was. He really felt really dicey when he was taken off the floor, and David was trying to run the thing there. I don't know if you saw anything else, Joe, or if we could move to somebody else, but that's kind of what I saw.
Yeah, no, he was. We got confidence, Braden Smith, and when you get confident, Braden Smith, good things are going to happen. Just confident shooting, setting up guys. When he got Christian McCaffrey on him a decent bit, or not Christian. That would be interesting. He had Connor McCaffrey on him a decent bit on the perimeter, and every time he had him, he just absolutely cooked him. And McCaffrey, I mean, he had the 3 air balls, and he was frustrated. And there was from my angle, there was a couple times Smith blows right by him, and then in that corner, kind of right in front of the student section, and McCaffrey's just so pissed. He's just so upset with everything that's going on. Just couldn't keep Smith in front, and I'm kind of going back through my notes, and I'm at the game in the student section, so the notes aren't the absolute greatest. That first 7 minutes, Smith, from what I saw, kind of have down, Smith destroyed the press. Smith turned the press into easy offense. And I think the switch was he got a little more almost too nonchalant. I think the last 10 minutes is where you kind of saw some of the issues. But that stretch where he took over, he had 2 or 3 times, he just absolutely, turned the press into an easy bucket, straight to the rim, getting somebody on the perimeter. He has the skills. And I think it's just, he's got to figure out the right level of mixing and shooting, setting up guys, and just keeping the confidence within him at all times. Because when he's confident, he's one of the best, point guards in the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Kraig, you got any thoughts here on Braden before we move on to some of the other guys?
I don't have any thoughts on Braden. I want to talk about Caleb first a little bit, because I think he gets lost tonight. The dude was 100% from the floor. He had a double-double. They were so worried about boxing out Zach Edey and trying to rebound over him. Caleb came in and got a lot of rebounds. A lot of his shots were at the rim or off rebounds, but the dude was perfect from the floor and ended up with a double-double. Just an incredible game for him. And so much of his are, they're just random points or slot points, you might say, at times, cleanup points. But sometimes I think his value gets overlooked. And like Aidan or Joe said earlier, his improvement on the defensive end has also been invaluable. I also do want to say, just before we move on quick, Patrick McCaffrey stepped away from the game not too long ago. It was really nice just as a basketball fan. He's been through a whole bunch of health problems in his life. If you don't know his story, you should read up on it. I personally, even though it was probably detrimental for our team at times because he gives even more added length out there, it was really good to see him back out on the basketball floor tonight.
Oh, for sure. No, it's you always are happy to see guys be able to return from stuff like that. Just hopefully he keeps getting better.
Yeah. Sorry, I was somebody with a red shirt out on the Mackey Arena floor shooting hoops. I thought, you guys better tell them to beat it. So we're always shaking people down here at Mackey Arena. So some of the other, someone in the chat just mentioned, 5 guys in double figures for Purdue, 10 for Gillis, 17 for Lawyer, 24 for Braden Smith, 14 for Zach Edey, 11 for Caleb First. That's pretty impressive. But, Zach Edey, quiet night. Talk about, First having a quiet night, but being effective. Zach Edey gets to 14 points with some crucial buckets at the end. When they got it down to 6, back-to-back huge buckets for Zach Edey to extend the lead back to 10. Then he forces a jump ball by being the first to the floor, and diving out and laying out completely. 4-7 from the field, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, only 2 fouls on the game, and only 2 turnovers of the game in 33 minutes of play. Go ahead, Aidan.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot in the chat about Edey, wanting him to be more aggressive, maybe saying he was too unselfish tonight. I get that, some of that, but I also think it's hard. I think like everyone, I think he could probably get to his drop step a little bit, a little bit more, get to that left hand that we've seen him do. He really picks his spots with that, and he almost never misses when he's shooting with that left hand on the drop step because it's such an easy shot. They sit on that left shoulder so much. So, I think I thought he played a nice game. I thought he made a lot of good decisions, 4 assists, like you said, Greg. Like, that's a really good number for him. He hasn't hit that mark a lot this season. And the other thing about the press, and I've seen some guys say, just throw it up to Edey, or just try and blow by, try and get downhill to the rim and make them pick between you and Edey driving to the rim. And to some extent, I get that. But here's the thing, guys, is I think Painter doesn't want to play a track meet. Painter has no intention of making any kind of game what it was for the first 7 minutes of the second half. He hates that. You could see it on the sideline. He didn't know whether he was trying to call timeout. They didn't hear him. Then he just decided to not do it. And he really doesn't want that to happen, which is why Purdue's 326th in the country in tempo. They want to play slow. You would see when Braden gets across, hold the ball, look over at Coach Johnson, get the play off the board. And they do that for a reason, because they're really bad in transition defense, Purdue is. And they don't want to just score. And now Iowa's taken out of the net and sprinting down the floor. We saw that in the second half. They did that a whole lot. Connor McCaffrey would just go. He would just get the ball and go off Purdue makes. And so, we could probably do that a little more. But at that point, you're tiring Braden Smith out, who's your only real point guard. You're leaving yourself a little bit vulnerable in transition. Let's say Edey gets a dunk. Now everyone's celebrating. And here comes Iowa. Here comes the other team. We saw that a couple times tonight when Lawyer hit that 3 in the corner. Like, he was screaming at the crowd, and I get why he was doing that, but they were already to midcourt, sprinting down the other way. So I do think Zach could have dunked a few tonight. I think that they're right about that in the chat. I also think they came quick on the double, like Jeff Park says here. Maybe he could go before that double gets there. That's a fair critique. He wasn't necessarily as assertive tonight as he necessarily has been. He's had some success with that, just kind of spinning into the guy and lowering his shoulder. And then I think they went under on screens. Their whole plan was to, take Edey out of it. And then they did that, and he still got 14 and 14. So I'd slow on the criticism of Edey. But
the problem with just go and duck and go and assert yourself is you're inviting charges.
Absolutely.
And we saw that a lot in the last 2 years. And we've seen him, get more aggressive, try to step through that double team and whatnot. A lot of times in second halves or in the last 10 minutes when he's only got one foul. And he can afford to do it in that point in the game. But we don't want an IU scenario where he picks up 2 quick fouls or relatively quick fouls and has to go to the bench, because we know, like, we've seen enough of a sample size to know how much our defense drops off when he's not protecting the rim. So when they're coming that quick with doubles, and then when they're coming that quick, it's really easy for us to sit on our couch or 60 feet away in the stands and say, well, this time it didn't come as quick. You should have went. But when you're playing back to the basket and you're playing off field, you don't have the same view that we do. And when they come that fast every time, then you're almost like assuming it's coming that quick. So you start looking out and whatnot. I thought there was one series where, like, Braden had a 3-footer, should have took it, kicked it out to Morton for a 3. Morton misses it. Edey gets it. Edey didn't have anybody around. Like, there was one guy right there. He could have easily put up a hook. He kicks it back out. Mm-hmm. That was maybe really the only play where I questioned, like, him and Braden both, should they have been more aggressive at that time?
Yeah. And I think the other thing with Edey and all this is, obviously, he, maybe he could have put up a couple more. I don't think we would disagree with that. But the gravity that he has on the court is just insane. Like, he has legitimately, when I say gravity, I mean, like, in the NBA, they talk about it with Steph. Like, his gravity is, the defense has to play so far out on Steph because of how good of a shooter he is. Defenses had to be so focused on the rim and at Edey. Like, it just opens up so much other stuff too. There's like the one play, the Lawyer cross court skips to first knocks down his 3 in the first half. That's because of Edey. And it was a good pass by Lawyer, and it was a good shot by First. Don't get me wrong there. But that's because of Edey. That's, Lawyer's on the wing. Edey's looking for a post up. They're like side. They're not fronting him, but they're kind of on the side. And then they have 2 guys on backside help. One sagging from the top, one from that weak side corner. Now First has nobody within 20, 30 feet of him because of Edey's gravity. And so there's just stuff like that too. Like even when Edey doesn't have it going, we saw with Nebraska, the first game, like, and just Purdue just didn't make shots. Like just him being 8 feet from the rim opens up so much for everybody else, even if he doesn't touch the ball for 8 straight possessions.
Yeah, for sure. And Blake just put something in the chat here, and I know exactly what play he's talking about. You need to remember that McCaffrey's 6'7", and that Braden Painter is listed at 6 foot. He is not 6 foot. So like we've seen when we played Pickett from Penn State, Zach came over and would double sometimes because Pickett was so good at that post up. So I think there is certain situations where Painter tells Zach to go. The rotation was bad. The problem wasn't Zach coming over. The problem was the rotation off of that. Yep.
Yeah, that's their rules. That's their defensive rules, is to double the post like that. And so they follow it adamantly, and Painter's okay giving up that layup. He's not okay with it, but the guy he's going to yell at isn't Edey. It's whoever was responsible for coming down and tagging the big there.
Yeah, and to some of your guys' points as far as some of the shots he could have had, at one point he turned around, like you said, he's always expecting the double to be there or, some physicality, and no one was there, and it threw him off a little bit, and he missed the shot because of it. It was like he just never sees that, so it like shocked him almost. And then I think the other thing that needs to be said, 5 blocks on the night, somebody mentioned it earlier in the night on the chat, he affects so many shots. I mean, this goes without saying, but he just affects so many shots that don't find their way on the stat sheet, from underneath the rim, guys, maneuvering around the paint, trying to find their opening to throw it up, but they always have to change the trajectory of their shot. And then specifically for me, the observation I made is a few times guys had him one-on-one where he's guarding, a guy at the free throw line, Rebraca, or, a guy at the 3-point line like McCaffrey, and they put up the shot. They think, hey, I got a little bit of space. But with Edey, even if you've got a couple steps of space, that's still not enough, because once Zach starts to extend his hands up, you've got to now shoot a lollipop to make the shot, which is probably not how they're used to shooting. You need like 4 steps to really, have an advantage when Zach's on you out there like that. So, it certainly is something that shouldn't go, unnoticed.
McCaffrey was, Connor McCaffrey, he was scared to go at Edey. They get the switch because Purdue was kind of late switching that 4-5 screen. If it was both First and Edey involved, and Edey gets switched on to Connor McCaffrey, they kind of clear out. And you see teams do this a lot. Sometimes sometimes like Walker burns, he burned Edey once, but that was off ball. Purely on ball, like guys don't actually want to go at Edey too much. They have to take. It's either they take a tough pull up jumper. Or they're going to take a really contested shot at the rim most often, because Edey's going to live with the jumper. He lives with the jumper, and McCaffrey misses by 5 feet. So that was all I wanted to add.
Yeah, and Rebraca took a couple of tough twos. He made a few. Yes. He had the quietest 17 points on 8 of 12 I've ever seen. You really didn't feel his impact at all.
I like to call him Rebraca.
I'm just amazed that you say Rebraca confidently, but not Rapheal.
Rebraca. I think Rebraca sounds better. So I don't know if it's Rebraca, but he needs to move it to Rebraca if it is. Let's go over a couple more guys. We're 15 minutes away from the hour and a half mark, and I still have an hour and a half to drive home. But I do want to highlight a few more guys. So wherever you guys want to take it, I mean, I certainly think we should talk about Mason Gillis again. He had a couple huge threes here tonight. He just continues to make an impact. Only 16 minutes of play, but gets into double figures, 4 rebounds, just always making plays. And it kind of felt like, he obviously not the 9 threes we saw the last time we were here at Mackey. But, once again, one of them, it certainly wasn't a spot up shot by any means. Like he walked into a three, kind of sidestepping it, as he gets the pass in. And I was really impressed by that 3-point make. If he's going to make threes like that, other teams are in trouble. Kraig, your observations from Mason Gillis tonight?
I mean, career percentage wise, you could argue that he's the best 3-point shooter that Purdue has over his career. I know he started out kind of slow this year. That was brought up. And then Purdue men's official basketball account kind of came at Jeff Goodman when he put that out there and showed his career numbers. But I love it when Mason shoots confidently. And I think he's in that groove right now. And I sure hope we see that going forward. There's a couple guys on this team that's like, man, your percentages say it's right, but they seem like if they hit one right away, they keep going. But as soon as they miss one, it seems like they kind of shy away a little bit. Right now, Mason feels like he's going to shoot through that. We know Lawyer's going to shoot through that. Like that dude don't care if he's 1 of 8. He's got that Kobe mentality of like, my 9th one's going in. I don't give a damn. But Braden and Mason, those guys, their percentages are good. They got to go ahead and just keep firing away. And I love seeing confident Mason Gillis out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of these will just go, and I'll ask kind of each one of you singularly so we don't go around the horn and spread this out, but give us an opportunity to cover a few more guys. I guess we can go to, let's stick to the guys that are in double figures first and foremost. Fletcher Lawyer, not his best day shooting, but still ends up with 17. I think 17 is his lucky number. I've said this a few times here on these post-game shows, I feel like, and he always seems to fall on 17 points on 7 of 16 shooting, only 2 of 8 from 3-point land, 2 rebounds, 4 assists in 34 minutes of play. Joe, when you saw Fletcher Lawyer's night, obviously hit a big shot at the end. What did you make of Fletcher's night overall?
Yeah, specific that shot right at the end. Not coming from an analyst, but I'm in that student section. I'm in that spot. I was like 4 rows up today because shout out the paint crew and the gods of Mackey for letting me do well in the lottery. But Lawyer hits that 3 in the corner right in front of us, and it's just such a cool feeling. It's like the game was kind of over already, but it's the dagger. He turns, just screams at the student section with us. It's just a cool feeling. And one, like, I'll just remember stuff like that for sure as being a part of the paint crew. But getting to like his actual gameplay, he's aggressive, 16 shots and most of them I would say were pretty good. I think he forced a couple threes in the first half after Purdue got off to that really hot start. I think he forced a couple that was like, okay, maybe not, but he's so smooth. Shoot, I guess, he only went 2 of 8 from 3, but at 5 of 8 from 2, he had a couple big drives. He had a couple big pull-ups, like just does what, does a little bit of everything on offense. And then on defense, like I said, IU was not a good defensive game for him. I thought he was fine this game. And for somebody like Lawyer, actually probably a little better than fine. His main matchup was Sanford and probably Ulyss, and they combined for 10 points in 40 minutes. He did solid. And so I thought it was just a, pretty solid game. Obviously you will hope for 1 or 2 more threes to fall down, but even then still was a good game.
Yeah, you'll certainly take it, especially in a winning fashion. And then, like I said, I just put it up with the plus minus. He was plus 20 in his plus minus. Caleb first leading the way at plus 24. The other guy that I really wanted to talk about, as we always seem to talk about, the glue guy, but Ethan Morton, plus 15 in the plus minus. Some people hate plus minus, some people love it, but it certainly is indicative of who he is as an impact player, because he leads the team in minutes tonight at 36 minutes. Kraig mentioned it at one point here on Media Row, like he's not going to get much of a break tonight because they need him with some of the mismatch problems that Iowa can give you with their personnel. But only 5 points, 36 minutes on 5 points, 2 and 6 shooting, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 fouls, 2 turnovers, so, Aidan, as far as your thoughts on what Ethan Morton did tonight and the impact he makes without it really showing up in the stat sheet necessarily.
Yeah, I thought he had a solid, Ethan Morton kind of game. Knocked in a three there that was good to see. Shot the ball with some confidence tonight. Didn't always go in, but you like to see that out of him. I thought he did his best on Murray. It's a tough assignment. Saw someone in the chat say his defense is a little overrated. Murray had whatever he wanted. That's true, I guess, to some extent that Murray had whatever he wanted, but a lot of that was went without Edey, down there protecting the rim. And maybe that goes a little bit more to Raphael's point earlier about, Edey being the backstop, so to speak, that everyone's feeding, the offensive players into. And a lot of that stretch where Murray was going off, I know I wrote down in my notes the under 12 timeout, those 4 minutes, Murray had, I think, 8 points, and Edey wasn't in during that stretch. So he saw blood. And I'll tell you this, guys, most teams see blood whenever Kaufman, Wren, and Gillis enter the game from an offensive perspective of, okay, finally we got a breath of fresh air. We can go at these guys and not worry about Edey, not worry about Caleb First's length bothering people. But tonight I thought Morton did a, pretty good job, did what he did, and was obviously much better to have him out there than anyone off the bench if you just look at the plus minus on that. So yeah, continue to be impressed by Ethan's smarts. He's always in the right place. I thought tonight he had a couple nice jobs where he attacked closeouts, created for others. He wasn't just going to automatically take the three tonight. He did a few times, which is good, but he also mixed in a couple times where he ripped and attacked, got a paint touch, created for somebody else. And he's obviously pretty reliable against the press. I know he may have had a few turnovers, but he's nice to have out there. And it got to the point in this game where Paint needed to have his best 5 decision makers out there. And obviously I think tonight those were his starters.
And let's not forget, Chris Murray's a first-round draft pick. and we heard Rapheal Davis say earlier about when you get to March, it's about dominant players, whether that's dominant in the college game or NBA players. He said NBA players. That's what Chris Murray is. And against those types, it's like when we had Carson and other teams would be like, well, if we can limit him to 24, if we can just keep him from going off for like a 30, 40 point night game, we did okay. All right. Ethan Morton is not likely. I don't want to say not, but not likely playing in a pro league anywhere when he gets out of college. And he held
Purdue.
Chris, and he held Chris to 24. And I want to say 8 or 9 of those points came when he was completely off the floor altogether. He did fine. He slowed him down. And against those type of guys, Chris Murray is going to be second team All-American. He's the 3rd leading scorer in the Big Ten at like 22 a game. He basically held him in check at his average, and that's what you want to do.
Absolutely. Michael Hogg taking off for the night. We appreciate you as always tuning in. A couple more guys. Jeff Parks is saying Caleb First is going to be doing an interview on Field of 68 after dark tonight. So
who wants to listen to them when you can listen to us?
You got us. I mean, Jeff's promoting.
Except for when we bring Field of 68 guys on, and then we love them.
After you are more than what we love the Field of 68 guys, even if Jeff Goodman gets under our skin with his assessments of Purdue. But outside of Jeff, we love the Field of 68 guys. So after the show, go watch the Caleb First interview with the Field of 68. A couple more guys before we give our game balls and close this thing out. But, we can shake our pom-poms all day long on this show, and we will. This is the number 1 team in the country. They have great players from top to bottom. And I know my guy, Bitcoin is Freedom, who always shows up in the comments after the shows are over. He's never in the live chat. He's just in the comments after the link is already posted on YouTube. He always he gets on us when we talk about Brandon Newman critically. And I think TKR is somebody we should touch on, both these guys, because like I said, we can talk about the pom-poms all day long. But, Brandon Newman, only 4 minutes tonight, 0 points on 0-2 shooting, 0, no 3, only took 1 3, missed it, 1 rebound. He had a turnover. At one point, it looked like he was open, and they went the other way to Jenkins, and it came back over to him, and then he tried to force a drive in as the shot clock was winding down, gets blocked out of bounds. Painter immediately points to the bench. Ethan Morton, you come in. Brandon comes out. And from my observation as Brand, because I always watch Matt Painters, and especially when a mistake is made by anybody, I always look to see Painter's reaction to see like who he thinks is at fault. And in this instance, when Brandon came off, Matt said something to him, and I'm not anywhere close to knowing what it was, but Brandon turned around and said something back to him, and it was a normal conversation. I don't want to say that he was being insubordinate by any means, because he wasn't, but Matt kind of doubled down on what he was trying to tell him or teach him. And then Brandon obviously is frustrated. He wants to play well, I get it, and he's got limited minutes on his team. They sit him down by the first assistant coach right at the front of the bench nearest to Painter, and then Painter and the assistant coach were kind of trying to talk to him about, what they wanted out of him in that play. And I just think we're kind of in the same place we were last year with Brandon, and I know a lot of fans want to see the best for Brandon. We all do. It's very hard in that role. Matt Painter's talked about it a million times. If you're not getting many minutes, it's hard to get into a rhythm. Now it starts to seem like he's just not confident in many aspects of his game. He's still holding it down defensively when he's out there. He's still getting his rebounds when he gets his minutes. But, it's, when you get to the end of the season like this and you got to hold on for dear life in games like this, he's kind of getting the short end of the stick when it comes to the minutes. Kraig, I'll start with you. What do you think Brandon's got to do to kind of get hot again? I see people in the chat saying, love to see him have a standout game to boost his confidence, before we get to March. What's your assessment of Brandon Newman here so far?
He's just got to make the right decisions. I mean, that's all it is. And, we've heard Painter say 100 times, you've got to do what you do well. Okay. Attacking the rim off the bounce is not what Brandon Newman does well. He had a couple of times where he just made questionable passes, either against the press or just in a half-court offense. Brandon just needs to do what he does well, and he needs to take the game as it comes to him. And like you've said, there's too many times where he thinks he should have gotten the ball and had a shot, and then he'll get it a few seconds later. And because he didn't get it when he did, he just goes ahead and forces up that shot. Like, he's got to let the offense come and flow to him, and he's got to be a better decision maker on the floor and focus on what his strengths are.
Either of you have anything to add to that before we talk about TKR quickly?
Yeah, I can go. One of the things, the head coach at Oral Roberts, Paul Mills, one time he told me this phrase, which is the faster your brain moves, the slower your feet do out on the floor. And I think that applies to Brandon Newman. I think when the game gets sped up like it did tonight, and really a lot of the guys on our bench, when that game gets sped up, your mind just starts racing and then you can't think. And when you've got as many plays as Purdue has and the crowd's going crazy, and there's length and guys jumping at you, I think Brandon just needs to slow down, let the game come to him. And like Kraig said, make better decisions. You got to make better decisions with the basketball. And, I thought he maybe could have, on the one he airballed, he probably could have pulled the trigger the first time he got it. And then it ended up being a tougher shot for him and he airballed it. And then in transition against the press, chucks one out of bounds and you're like, man, because you want him to do well, but he just right now isn't producing. And I think the game tonight was just too fast for him. And Painter looked at it and went, if I put you in this second half, are we going to get 2 more light ball turnovers? Or what's the risk versus the reward? And right now for Brandon, I don't think, from Coach Painter's perspective, I don't think the reward outweighs the risk with Newman right now.
Well, and we talked to David Jenkins about this, and he said he's really, he's at closest with Brandon Newman than he is anybody. And I think David is just such a great mentor for him because that's going to be his role. I mean, ultimately on this team, he's unlikely to find his way into the starting lineup next year, which is his senior year, if he chooses to stay, which at this point I think he would. He chose to stay this year, and I commend him for that by, sticking his feet in the dirt and taking on the role that Matt Painter's trying to fill him out for on this team. And I think Matt has shown him a lot of trust this year. If he misses a shot here or there, he still stays in because he does hold it down on the defensive end. He does rebound the basketball, which is something this team needs help with outside of Zach Edey. But, at the same time, you may not like plus minus. I mean, he's about even with that -1. The other guy I wanted to talk about was Trey Kaufman-Renn before we, give out our game balls and close this thing out. Trey Kaufman-Renn, again, it's like, he certainly has good things about his game, but we just keep talking about it. His strength, for me at least, his strength stands out. he's able to get some shots up, but then at times it's a struggle because he's really getting bodied. And then on the defensive end, as Kraig has pointed out numerous times, he's really getting beat up on the glass. And, it at one point I felt like David Jenkins did a better job of boxing out than Trey Kaufman-Renn, all due respect. But, Joe, what do you think Trey Kaufman-Renn has to do here to finish up the year to kind of, get back on track to when he was had that 20-point game and, was feeling confident in his role? Because it just feels like he's kind of shaky here lately.
I think it's just all physicality. I think that's really where it is at this point, is just figuring out how physical he can be, how to, just deal with opponents' physicality. Because it seems like the past 4 or 5 games, every stint he comes in, it's, opposing teams give him the same physicality that Edey gets. Obviously TKR is 7 inches shorter and 40 pounds lighter or whatever. I don't know what he's listed at. And so he gets the physicality. It's not called. So he's like, okay, now I can be super physical. But now it's it goes back and now he's getting some foul calls. And, I think that probably a decent amount of them are right. Some of them are wrong. Who cares? I think he's just trying to figure that out. And it's another thing of this was his 25th game. And that's 25 games. That's we're getting to a decent sample size, getting close to the end of the first year, but he still has time to figure it out in the future. Hopefully that he can turn into just an 8 to 10 minutes, of just solid play, nothing crazy. I also think that maybe he's just not quite built for the usage right now. And I think he can be on our interview with Will Berg, when we talked about all the bigs, TKR was the only one. He was like, man, TKR is going to blow up at some point. Then you talk to anybody, that's what they say is TKR is going to blow up at some point, just go off, and really, really become productive. And so I think figuring out the physicality is the big thing. And then just, maybe when he's in Purdue, finding a way to maybe not have him at such a high usage rate as they seem to do, but also that's their offensive system.
Well, Kraig, do you think
he had an awesome pass?
I'm sorry.
Ahead,
I was
Greg.
just going to say, do you think he's playing out of position? Because to me, they have him as the backup big to Zach Edey. They only throw it into him in the post. He's capable of making threes, so I know he can shoot the basketball. I never see him spot up, face up, and shoot. And I've said this a few times, and yeah, he needs to get in the weight room as far as defensive glass and posting up and shit like that. But at the same time, I just think we're missing an element of his game that he does have currently, and that's shooting the basketball. Maybe they're not telling right now you're not shooting the basketball because we're trying to be an efficient offense, and your 3-point shot is the 20th best shot we can take on an offensive possession, I guess. But at the same time, I think it's going to help him kind of grow into more of who he is. So do you think he's playing out of position?
No, I don't think he's playing out of position. I think he's a small 5 that eventually will have that, he does have that step out ability to hit a 3. I just don't think that's a focus with everything else we have going on in this offense right now by any means. Where I get confused when I listen to you guys talk about this is when I look at TKR, I think that dude is the most ripped guy on the entire team. I think he is ripped. I don't understand the get in the weight room. That's maybe just gain more weight.
I wasn't saying that. I'm saying adjust to where he can be physical. But I think sometimes he becomes too physical and it hurts him.
Right. But Greg talks about getting in the weight room. I think that dude is ripped. I think it's more technical and doing the technical things in game speed, because sometimes he just lets himself get buried too far under the basket on rebounds. And then he kind of looks around oh, I was under the basket instead of being 2 feet out and boxing out, or making a read fast in terms of sticking to defensive techniques when somebody's coming at him or when a big man's trying to back him down. And I think it's really important to remember Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith are freshmen that are playing far beyond what we expect freshmen to play like in the Big Ten. TKR is playing like a freshman in the Big Ten. This is what we normally expect from freshmen. You're going to have things to clean up and keep learning. You're going to have games where you have standout opportunities, and you're going to have games where you look like you're a freshman and you need to keep learning things. I have no doubt
also,
that he's going to be an impressive player going forward. But, Brantley's got to spend some time with him, obviously, just being a bigger defensive presence in the block.
Yeah, and I think, two things. One, it's hard to throw him the ball. Like, his defender engulfs him a lot of the time. He's that's just his size. I think when he has a featured role, there will be more 5-out stuff where you can pull him away from the rim, dribble at guys, run, double Chicago action to use. We got to get one mention of that here in the show.
There we go.
Get that on both sides where he can pick the side and then go. But the other thing, guys, is, he's got a 7'4" giant sitting on that bench where whenever he makes a mistake, he's looking over like, oh shoot, is Zach running to the scoreboard? So it's a situation where he's playing behind the National Player of the Year. He rarely ever has a chance to get into rhythm, and anytime he turns it over or misses a box out or whatever, he's kind of looking over there like, oh, don't put Zach in, and so I think that affects him too. And I do think like the way people talk about this guy inside the program gets me pretty excited, even if the results haven't, or even if it's been pretty up and down on the floor. He also had a dime to Morton tonight for a layup, which was nice as well to see.
Travion Williams,
I certainly think he has a lot of potential, but no, I mean, I'm not saying he's not chiseled, but I mean, strength wise, I do think he needs to get his strength up. I mean, I see a guy that does get pushed around when he's trying to post up, and we're going off of, and maybe it's skewed because I'm just so used to watching Zach Edey and Travion Williams, and those dudes are huge. But I do feel like, I personally feel like he's more of a 4 than he is a 5, even though he has a really good post up game. I don't know. I mean, just by like the standard of how I've watched basketball for, the last 20 years, like to me, he's a guy that could float out to the 3-point line every once in a while. We just haven't seen any of that this year. He just gets on the block and, he does his thing at times, but lately it has been somewhat of a struggle. So, I don't really know how much more weight he can put on, but I certainly don't think it's going to hurt with the pounding you have to take to play in the post and be successful in the Big Ten. That being said, you are going to have Willie Berg here next year. So it'll be interesting to see how, they play off each other, and who knows if Zach Edey's going to stay or go. I mean, that'll be the question of the month when the season's over, but that's a story.
There's a lot more guys right now saying go than stay.
Yeah, for sure.
The narrative changed all of a sudden, and now NBA execs are like, there's a spot for him in the NBA, So I would put my money on TKR starting at the 5 and Berg backing him up next year.
That's
personally.
right. The bricklayer lingo, Chad, chiseled. So, all right. Well, I think that wraps things up for tonight. Like I said, we can always throw flowers at this team, but, we're going to try to give a critical eye to what we're watching as well, to give you the best analysis we possibly can here on Boilers in the Stands. And once again, everyone, if you're still tuned in this long, that means you're really enjoying what you're seeing. Please, if you're in the YouTube chat, still around 70 people in the YouTube chat, please hit that like button for us on your way out here tonight. Really appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll have games where we all give out a game ball, but just like last game, we only gave out one. We're going to only give out one again today. We all know who that guy is. Anybody want to take it? Give that game ball. Kraig, go ahead. Give the game ball out.
Braden Smith, the Wizard of Westfield.
The Wizard of Westfield. I don't know about that one. Everybody says it's what it is. I know it's his thing.
They made a shirt with it.
I know. It's just such a – that's fine. He wants to be the Wizard of Westfield. I'm not going to fight Braden Smith on it. He certainly is a wizard, magician, whatever you want to say with that basketball. It's a lot of fun to watch him play. So, Braden Smith, you get the game ball here tonight. Once again, shout out to our sponsors, Auto Owners Insurance and Shire Insurance. Those guys are taking care of us, and we want to take care of them. Make sure you call them or visit their website at www.shireinsurance.com or call 219-663-7274. and they'll help you out with all your insurance needs. They're Boilers fans too, so you're helping out the family there. And of course, my guys over at Fanbags Cornhole, the official supplier of Chicago cornhole boards and bags. So make sure you go ahead and visit them at www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. This is their new logo. So shout out to those guys as well. Appreciate you guys being in our corner here at Boilers in the Stands. Thanks for everybody for tuning in here tonight. Appreciate the kind words here as we wrap things up. The Midwestern goodbye is officially upon us. I have an hour and a half drive on my way home. It's 10:20 at home. Luckily, I live Central Time. So if I leave right now, I will be home by midnight. But I enjoy being able to sit down and do the post-game show like this. So no complaining from me while we cover the number one team in the country. Certainly a lot more fun than covering my Bears, who are the worst team in football. So we're having fun with this. I'm wrapping it up. No final thoughts or final anything. We're just going to say goodnight. Matt Painter's had enough of me talking, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So good night, everyone. We'll be back Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Boilers versus the Northwestern
The only important
Wildcats.
sporting thing that day.
What's that? That's
the only important sporting thing that day.
Yeah, bigger than the Super Bowl. Everyone will be tuned into Boilers in the Stands for the pregame. That's basically your pregame before the Super Bowl. Yeah. The Eagles and the Chiefs going on. See, you got me on a tangent, but so excited for Sunday. Magic numbers down to 3, 4 if you want to do the outright, but it's certainly 3. Could be down to 2 by Sunday. Make sure you tune into our post-game show on Sunday. We're going to be having a lot of fun talking hoops. Maybe I'll have a few drinks in me too. Who knows? Yeah, that's right. Good luck to George Karlaftis. How do you say
Karlaftis.
Rabracha, Rapheal. Okay, I'm getting it down. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you tune in, hit that like button, and always boiler up.